Even if you're a student, like part of, an esports league, or maybe you're just getting your feet wet in this space, like you can still make a difference based on the experience and skills that you have. Even just having someone who cares, like someone who's an advocate, like if we can find you or you reach out to us and we can share connection information later, like that's a huge step for us, because half the battle is finding people who want to support our cause, want to make a difference in whatever way.
Hi, everybody. We are back for IGEAS Day 1, and we are joined by some of my two favorite people that I've been able to work with getting all of this set up. We're here for the connective power of esports. How can we harness it for good? How can esports help build community and solve some of the worst refugee crisis problems, or at least help alleviate them? Honestly, I'm very excited. We have a filled hour, but before we begin, Abisuda, Asenka, if you guys could introduce yourselves, let's let the audience know what it is we're here to do, where you guys come from, and why don't we start with you, Abisuda?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Vasudha Nandu. I'm an officer on the International Rescue Committee's corporate partnerships team. I'm super excited to be here, and I'll kick it over to Senka so she can introduce herself.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm Senka Filipovic, Senior Officer on the Corporate Partnerships team at the International Rescue Committee. And just super excited for this conversation today. I have to admit, this is our very first panel in the esports space. So we're very excited. And just thank you so much for having us.
Well, I want to share that thanks right back, because in all of the times that we've talked about this panel and we've prepped about what it is we want to really, talk about, I feel like I've learned so much. I've learned so much about the surprising urgency. It's even more urgent than I first thought, right? Like this really is a pressing situation. It's been made even more pressing lately. And I think that's where I'd like to start. Why don't, just for those who need just that too long didn't read context, right? What is the IRC's chief mission? What's the thing you guys are trying to do? What's the thing that makes you wake up every single morning?
So I guess I can start, and Senka, feel free to chime in. But the International Rescue Committee, or the IRC, is a humanitarian response organization. We're over 80 years old, and we actually were created at the suggestion of Albert Einstein to help Jews who were fleeing the Nazi in Europe. So we have a long, long history. But we're an emergency response organization. We work in 40 countries. We do refugee resettlement in the U.S. as well, responding across the arc of crisis, and just really providing a suite of services like education to economic empowerment, help people get jobs, find safety, and new community as they rebuild their lives.
And I'll just add that, one of the unique things about the IRC is that we're one of the only organizations that really works across the arc of the crisis. So just imagine when a crisis emerges in a place like Syria or Afghanistan, the IRC is there on the ground to provide emergency response and then also long-term programming as needed. But we also, as people are displaced due to conflict or disasters, we work with them along that path that they have to take. So, once they leave their country, we're usually in the surrounding countries providing aid. And then when refugees are finally resettled to the US, which is a very difficult and long process, the IRC is here too in the US. We have offices in 25 cities, and we do everything from greeting refugees at the airport to providing them with a slew of services to make sure that they're able to basically rebuild their lives in their new communities. So it's a very big mission, but critical.
Yeah, and I think it's the rebuilding of one's life. That's the thing that I've taken away from our conversation so many times. And I think from, as a gamer, when I hear that, I want to, okay, well, what would it take to rebuild my life, right? What would happen if I was just all of a sudden completely, upended? And I started thinking about, well, yeah, there's certain things that you could get back with time. You could find a new house, a new car, but like, am I ever going to find my community? Am I ever going to find all those friends I used to do anything with? The sense that I am me and I am attached to this place, and both of those things are constant. And I think that's really where our first seed of what can esports and gaming do, because it's not just helping people get back on their feet. It's, well, then what comes afterwards? And as we've all experienced what it's like to be disconnected over the past 2 or so years, I have been inspired by our student leaders here at IGEAS. I've been inspired by the way that young people are using gaming and esports to forge new in-jokes, to form new guilds, clans, whatever it is. So with that being said, and if we now know that, the IRC is trying to really, tackle this from a full picture way, what was it about esports and gaming that made you guys have that light bulb moment? Like, when was Senka and Vasuda like, you know what? I think we're doing all this great work, but maybe we should turn on a switch. Maybe we should turn on a video game. How did that happen?
I'm happy to share a little bit, and Vasuda, jump in, please. But it's kind of a little bit of a funny story, to be honest. This is something that we have been trying to do at the IRC for a few years, in terms of trying to get involved within the gaming space, and then esports as part of it. Internally, about maybe 5 years ago, we wrote an internal memo that we shared with our leadership to make a case as to why the IRC should be engaging with gamers and why this is so exciting. And it honestly took a good 4 years for us to convince and cajole and educate people, because unfortunately people have such crazy misconceptions about the space. But it was amazing that we finally got to that place. And what's awesome is that right now people are so excited about it at the IRC, and we have full support. But really the reason why we were looking at this in particular is because sports and games, especially when you combine that, it's such an incredible connector. And we really saw this space as something different from what we typically do. It gives us access to a global community. It has endless sort of creativity to it, and is really giving us a chance to do something different. And find a new way of helping the IRC and promoting our mission and work, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to actually call on you, Vasuda, to maybe provide some context to what Senka was saying about just how long it took and how there was all this persuading, because I'm very familiar with that kind of line, with educators, a lot of parents. But can you give us some examples, or maybe what were some of the most common hurdles that you guys had to overcome? Because I'm sure many people in the audience are facing a similar resistance, or they will.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's a long journey. And I think it was really probably right before the pandemic started, the green light, and we were like ready to go. And obviously during the pandemic, everyone saw the gaming community connected to philanthropy, to support organizations that were responding to COVID. And then I think that was like
sorry. So it looks like we're breaking out just a bit of Vasuda with you. So why don't we try that again? Can you just try to answer that again? Because I didn't really hear that.
If I'm cutting out, I can also I can turn off my video.
Yes, let's try that for now, Arts. We're gonna try to maybe just see if the audio quality. Great. Let's get this answer.
Hopefully you guys can hear me a bit better now.
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, great. So I'm not sure exactly where I cut off, so apologies if I'm repeating myself. But I would say, you know, we got the green light to pursue gaming right before the pandemic started, but it was really during the pandemic that I think a lot of our leadership and just in general, the nonprofit space saw the value of engaging with the gaming community. They saw, you know, how much awareness they were able to raise about COVID. They were already engaging, you know, in the digital space, which the rest of us had to move into and get comfortable with, and also just the amazing ability to raise so much funding to support frontline healthcare providers and other organizations responding to COVID. But to answer your question, I mean, it was everything from like myth busting about the gaming community. Like there's still such a negative perception, even though we know that these are really positive, you know, community spaces, that everyone is very engaged, that it can be diverse and inclusive and welcoming. And you know, that it's self-moderating. There's this idea of like trolling and whatever else. So a lot of it was like myth busting, actually helping, you know, people understand the breadth of gaming. Like what does gaming mean?
Yes.
Some people like consider gaming as gambling, and I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about. What is a live stream? What is Twitch? You know, just really understanding how much more advanced gaming is now versus like, you know, this old school perception of consoles. Obviously there are people who are still playing on consoles, but like gaming has just developed so much. There's been
well, you know, that phrase, and by the way, thank you so much for complying with the camera. You can turn your camera back on now. I think maybe if it ever gets laggy again, we found the solution. So thank you for that. But that's so true about this. How would I even describe it? I feel like there is a growing a complexity in trying to explain the breadth of video games, because it's like, well, yes, I understand, yes, a video game is me staring like at the screen, but like, do you know how many different genres there are? There's puzzles, there's detective games, there's art creation games, there's music creation games. Like literally, I think it's going to get to the point where, in the same way I think it would be odd if someone said, oh, I just don't read books, I've never just read a book, reading's just not for me. Why? Because I just don't like books. Most people would say, well, maybe there's a book out there you haven't read that you'd like. Like we would immediately understand that there are so many books out there. You can always find one for somebody. I think we're heading that way towards video games, especially genres when it comes to getting young people engaged, or maybe a mind that normally would have no reason to connect with this. Actually, just earlier today, we saw a Minecraft, a lesson that was being used to like promote farming techniques and things like that. So, you know, those are some of the attractive reasons why we know we can persuade the educators and the adults of the world that gaming is not so bad. But Senka, I'm curious if we can focus a bit on the direct refugee experience. And I know that you have tons of experience with that. You know, I would love to ask you, when it comes to those long-term disconnection threats, those things where, you know, I'm in a new country, but, you know, everything's different. What are those sort of struggles? What do they look like? What do they feel like? I have a feeling that all of the gamers in the crowd, they may relate with a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Just going back real quick to what you guys were talking about, you know, educating inside of the IRC. One of the funniest things was that, you know, people that we were talking to and the pushback that we were getting was very much, you know, they were like, we have nothing to do with gaming. We don't know gaming. And we would always ask them, so do you play anything on your phone? Like when you're on the subway, you know, when you're just at home chilling, you have nothing to do. And so many, pretty much every person was like, oh yeah, I do play Candy Crush, or I play like, you know, Words with Friends or something. And I'm like, you're a gamer. Like you don't even realize it. And I think that really sort of helped, you know, kind of like pull that curtain back and have people start realizing like that they're already in the space and they didn't really even know it. But
well, and before you answer my second question, I 100% agree. The more we can spread the definition of that term, like the more we can say, well, just
Yeah.
because you don't have RGB headphones and lights set up in your bedroom and you don't game for 10 hours. No, you can still game. I mean,
Yeah.
Pokemon Unite just came out on mobile. Shout outs to that MOBA, right? It's a great game. And now you can play it on your phone. It's an incredible game. You're definitely a gamer. So to back up then, right? So this second question, right? I'm trying to find this, what is that core relatability, and really the problem that we are starting to believe esports and its ability to bring communities together, it's trying to solve. So, how does that problem manifest in the refugee experience, the refugee a reality?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. And, I do have, unfortunately, have personal experience in this because I was a refugee, and I'm originally from Bosnia. And in the mid-90s, I had to flee my home because of the conflict. And it was actually the IRC, our organization, that resettled me and my family to California.
Wow.
So I came here as a pretty young kid. And, that basically started my journey with the IRC. I mean, it's been 20 plus years in the making. So I'm very grateful to be part of this organization and helping those who are unfortunately in a similar situation, or if not a worse situation than I was. But, one of the hardest things about being a refugee is that you really kind of lose sense of control over anything. You're just sort of trying to make decisions as best as you can in an environment where really nothing is up to you. And then ultimately you end up somewhere. And, through that journey, you don't even know where necessarily you will go to. In my case, I ended up in the US, which obviously worked out really well for me and gave me an opportunity to have a new chance at life, basically.
Yeah.
But still, as lucky as I was when I came here, I'm you're without anything. You don't know anything. You don't know anybody. I didn't speak English. I mean, I was just as lost as you can possibly be. And I remember I arrived to the US on a Friday, and I actually started school on Monday. And so it was just kind of like, you
That's
leave a
the
war
most
zone, you're
like
a
newcomer
refugee.
kid you can be.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the new kid experience amplified.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're like in a new classroom after being out of school for a number of years, and it's just crazy. But one thing I will say, and this is part of the reason why I do love esports, is that for me personally, back then, I liked playing video games, and I was very into sports. Sports actually became a saving grace for me as I first came to the US, because it was the only way that I could sort of immediately get involved in something. I didn't need language skills to be part of that. I just needed to like get out there and start playing. And it gave me a sense of community. It helped me deal with my anxiety. And it just like gave me confidence that I didn't have.
Oh yeah.
And in general, this is what I see. This is what sports is all about. I mean, it's a connector. It's like this language that really transcends so many barriers and helps unite people. So when I learned about esports, I was like, this is crazy. Like my two favorite things, video games and sports, is combined. Like, of course, we're going to focus on this. And I think that there is just so much opportunity here where we can tap into this community to build bridges and break barriers and help integrate people that have been left without any sense of community or belonging anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so exciting for me.
Yeah, I want to poke your brain in a little bit, Vasuda, about a follow-up question. So be prepared. But Trenka, I can't express how much I jive with that answer, because it just really matches a lot of what I've seen in my own life experiences. And there are two environments where I've experienced that race and where you're from and all that. They really don't matter if you create it well. Number one is a dance floor with amazing music and the vibe is just right. No one cares, right? You're just dancing, everyone's great. But I think the other thing can be an esports tournament because there is something nice when it doesn't matter if you're talking to anyone, doesn't matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter who you're with. If you show up and win, there you go. I'm gonna want to know your name. I'm gonna want to meet you, or I'm gonna at least like, wow, see you as a member that can join my community, or I'm going to look forward to seeing you every week because I know you play or I know you show up. That's something that I've experienced throughout my entire teenage years. You know, like I moved a lot. I never looked like anyone. You know, I always very much preferred to not get to know that many people. But when it came to like a video game, oh, that was great. You could just show up to any tournament, and that's how you make friends immediately. I think that's something that, you know, the refugee experience, even if it is having that weekly something where they can show up, build a new a marker that allows them to be connected to a group, to be connected to a pulse of community, so people can start, you know, seeing them every day and they have a voice. It really does come down to, I think that's the seed that gets us so excited, or gets me so excited about it, and I'm really happy we can be working together. And Vasuda, this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because, you know, I think we've laid a pretty good groundwork for the simple understanding of how esports can play a role in that connectivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's start talking about the logistics, right? Like making that happen, paying for this, making it so that, okay, we're not just all sitting around playing games. Like there are ways to scale this up. There are ways to also serve the IRC's core function, right? And that's kind of what I would like to get in now. What do you think are some of the practical steps that you guys have as an org have been having to take? Because I'm sure there's all sorts of other orgs that could learn from that. And then if you do have any experience, just as, you know, an empowered leader as you are, if I was a student or if I was someone who has my own esports community and I wanted to take steps towards working with you guys, or just kind of getting my ducks in a row so I can have a community worthy of inviting people to, what do you think are some of the nudges in those directions?
I mean, it's a big question, but I think it's hopefully an important one that we can answer well. So this panel is relevant to everyone. I mean, for us, I would say we definitely have this mentality that like anyone can make a difference, and like all it takes is even one action. I think a lot of times when you think about, especially humanitarian issues, social justice issues, you think of like the scale of a crisis. You don't feel like you can help, and sometimes that can be disabling. But like everything is within your power, everything is within your skill set, and I think it's just believing that. And so even if you're a student, you know, like part of, you know, an esports league, or maybe you're just getting your feet wet in this space, like you can still make a difference based on the experience and skills that you have. So for us, it's like even just having someone who cares, like someone who's an advocate, like if we can find you or you reach out to us and we can share connection information later, like that's a huge step for us, because half the battle is finding people who want to support our cause, want to make a difference in whatever way that is. So like finding someone who cares, I feel like it's the big steps, whether that's, you know, a corporate, you know, we work on the corporate side, whether that's a company, like a video game company or a different kind of company, or an individual who can be an advocate. They can push, you know, wherever they're working, they can push their company or their school or their club or their family members. You know, you can make a difference with just that like motivation. But I just wanted to start there because I feel like sometimes.
No, that's very important. Yeah, and I think that's a super practical call to action. I mean, like you heard it here, folks. It's an individual, and connecting with that individual. That's the hardest part. That's literally what these two leaders at the IRC is telling you. Half of the battle is just finding the people who are passionate, who get it, who say, yeah, this does sound like something I'm going to put my time towards. I think the reason I want to highlight that is because in so many times, you know, when I hear from young esports career seekers, there's a big emphasis on the skills you don't have, the accreditation you don't have, all of the things you don't have, because oh wow, how am I going to get an opportunity without that? And it's like, I get it. I've been an online a job seeker myself. I know what it's like to sit there and try to apply. But the reason we put on these networking events, and I think the reason these networking events are important, is because yes, there comes a time and place for needing to have that resume, to have that portfolio, but there's also a time and place for having your passion just recognized, having your passion just seen, just heard, having someone who is in the position to help you, give you like an internship or some opportunity, just to hear what motivates you. Because, I can speak from experience. When I meet people at these events, the ones that are really great, yeah, I want them to stick around. I am always giving them opportunities because this person is really taking the effort. So I hope anyone listening, whether you're listening to the VOD or live, right, please reach out. Just, I guess, for clarity, what's the simplest, easiest URL that they can type just before we move on? Because this is a nice segue.
So rescue.org is our main website. We also have, if you have an online community that you engage through live streaming, we have a current Tiltify campaign. So you can go to tiltify.com/International Rescue Committee, and you can find it there, and we'll share the link in other forums as well. But before we move, I just want to touch on, and I can go on endlessly about
I would like to hear that.
Career journeys, and because I know, personally, if you're trying to enter a space and it's really disabling, but
we may have you turn off your video. We may do our quick Band-Aid solution, because this is good stuff. Okay. I want to hear it. Great.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me now.
Yeah.
This is virtual events. We're flexible.
So yeah, it can feel really challenging, if you don't already have the experience or to get the kind of job that you want. And my own personal experience, I have to say, one, I think most fundraisers and partnership professionals that you speak with didn't know that was a career path. I think a lot of us find and build our way to that, and it's just figuring out, like, what do I want to do? What am I good at? Like, what do I like doing? What do I really dislike doing? Like, I found out I was working at a think tank, and I was like, I really don't like research, so I'm not going to keep doing this, like something as simple as that to help you move forward. Or I'm like, oh, I'm really good at like finances and understanding like how budgets and operations, and so this could be something I build towards. And that's kind of like, and then from there, on that job experience, I was exposed to like the frontline side of fundraising and partnerships. Like, you need to have a pipeline of money to actually continue your organization's mission and help these programs continue to keep serving the community that you're trying to help. And so then I was like, you know what, like, that's not a skill set I have yet, but let me figure out what projects I can work on within, the scope of my job. Like, let me see if there's someone working on something interesting, in a formal or informal capacity. And then I was like, okay, let me shift over to the side. And so, that brought me to fundraising. I was exposed to the world of partnerships, and I think Senka and I, if you guys are interested in us talking about like what that looks like and what you can do even in the world of gaming and esports with a nonprofit in a partnership space, I think happy to talk about it. But all to say, like, every step you take builds you towards where you want to have, and it might not make sense initially to other people. It might not even make sense to you, but everything you're doing this is very cheesy. Everything you're doing is getting
you. It's true though. So
I just want that to be like a motivating force, because I know sometimes it can be heartening.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, I sent portal, it's in a void, no one's gonna see it. So there's a lot of value in like figuring out what you're good at, what you want to do, thinking about there, and then like finding your. I think even as gamers, we are constantly. I'm including myself in this.
You are a gamer. We've established this. If you play a mobile game, you're a gamer. I don't want to hear it.
Zelda on my Nintendo Switch, and it's much harder than I remember it being when I was younger, but I enjoy it. but all to say that, we're building community. We're literally talking to strangers,
Yeah.
and connecting through gaming. Like, you can do that in your personal and professional networks, like asking for an introduction. People, when they like you for you, and that they understand and you communicate what you're interested in, they're more than happy to help you get there.
There's something that kind of connected in my mind a lot of what you were saying. You seem to, during those pivots in your career, you had a very clear a guidepost of like, this is what I like to do, this is what I don't like to do, And I think I was mentioning it earlier. I stumbled upon that by luck because as a kid, I just loved to read game FAQs and video game strategy. It's all I did constantly. And then it just so happened you can make a living writing game strategy and writing articles and things like that. So I was prepared. But when I started to explore, again, the core was that I loved gaming. Thankfully, I think I shared something in Vasuda that I just really knew what I liked. So I always stuck with gaming. But as I went in, oh yeah, the skills I developed, they all changed. There was a point where my core job was a writer. Then I moved into more reporting. Then I did more video editing. Now I do producing. And now I guess me and Senka are in a similar line of work, right? We do corporate partnerships as well as you, Vasuda. These are things I didn't know that I would have this interest, but I just followed my passion. So I think that's why I love IGEAS, especially because you get the most passionate attendees. These are young people who view gaming for all of its good sides, not maybe some of the more cynical outlooks we hear. I guess, would you like to add anything towards that, Senka? Because it is a big ask, to try to, and if you have anything to add before we move on, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think similarly to what Vasuda was saying, in our space of fundraising and corporate partnerships, it's kind of a funny like profession when you look at how people end up there. Like, we've all taken like very different paths, and somehow have found ourselves in this area. So what's great about it is that people will come from all sorts of backgrounds with different skill sets and so forth. But it's such a great opportunity to actually do like really meaningful and good work. But it's also super hard. And, among fundraisers, there is a lot of burnout. People, there is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of demand. And then when you're working at an organization like the IRC, where our work unfortunately continues to expand because of the growing crises around the world, it's taxing. I mean, emotionally and physically, it's taxing. So it's really important to sort of navigate all of that and still find ways to motivate yourself and be passionate about it, and somehow persevere through all of that. And I'll say, like, our engagement with gaming and esports has done just that for us. I mean, we have previously worked with sectors like agriculture and infrastructure.
That sounds exciting, thrilling.
Not fun. I'm sorry. Like, I have nothing against it, but, I can't say that I had fun in my job. Though, and after a while,
I will say shout outs to Farming Simulator, though. There is some crossover between esports and agriculture. Farming Sim is legit.
In this space, absolutely. I'm all about like agriculture and sustainability, climate change, all of that. But when you're just looking at the corporate world, not that fun. But all to say is that, we really made an effort to find something that we're super passionate about. And for us, it was gaming and esports. And we have jumped into this, and I think it has completely re-energized me as a person, as an employee of the IRC, as an advocate. So I'm just super grateful to be in this. But I just want to make one point, since I know that this is about, a lot of the conversations are about career pathways in esports. I just want to reiterate that no matter what path anybody chooses within esports, so if they're a professional player or social media manager or anything, they can also add this component of doing good into their job. Like Vasudha was saying, anyone, no matter what their position is in this space, can be an advocate, can be a connector, can put out messages that are, fighting for social justice or different causes like the IRCs, and can help organizations like the IRC get included in this space.
Yeah.
Whether it's a tournament or some sort of competition or event, anything like that helps us, and that helps other charities as well. So I just would love for everyone to keep that in mind. Like, don't lose the sight of the fact that you can do your job and you can also do a lot of good through your work.
Yeah, there's so many things that stuck out in my mind. One thing is when you were just being honest about how hard it is, how mentally taxing it can be. I feel as if anytime you're working with people, I found that there's a social battery that you just have inherently, and it's like it's draining all the time. I would also say, on the other note, that's all of my socials. People out there, all of my social outs. Yeah, there's work that's a calling for you. If you get energized by people, this is definitely something you should consider. You should consider it if you like talking with strangers, if going into a room of people and they all don't know each other, but you can be that source of energy. There are people like that, and I think a lot of this conversation, I hope, is helping our attendees switch to that mindset, right? That yes, you love gaming, yes, you love esports, but you don't just have to be a streamer. You don't just have to be like a YouTuber, right? There are so many different branches. And I will say, in all fairness, that was kind of a jab at YouTubers and Twitch streamers. But in all fairness, for the longest time, that was the perception of what you can do with gaming on the internet. Like that was just it. For like that's the peak. And a lot of what you were talking about, that's what's going to be needed to change. It is going to be needed for young people to work with orgs, these legacy orgs, the orgs that have been around for decades and decades. They're not like one switch away from having an esports program. They're not even close to, getting through the red tape that is required to really, let's understand this digital phenomena, esports, for what it is, and let's really dedicate the resources. That's only possible if you start getting that re-energization that you were talking about, that if you start feeling, because of esports and gaming, this new way I found to connect, my central mission at my job or company has renewed zeal, has renewed purpose. There's a chance that this may take off. There's a chance that this may ignite. And when you don't have that, that can become a big part of the fatigue, I think, the burnout, especially, like in esports. So I would say that to end, it's mutual for all the esports people that are burnt out, for all of those types. I would highly suggest working with a nonprofit. I would highly suggest, reaching out to people like the IRC. Find ways in which you can change the relationship you have with your esports work. Are you tired of another tournament I have to admin? Well, have you ever admined a tournament that was solely designed to welcome refugees to, join an online local? Who knows? But those are new problems you haven't solved before. Those are new people you haven't met before, and those are new connections you can make. That's what IGEAS is all about.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, we're not esports experts. We're fans, and we're trying to engage with the community to help the work or support our work. But like, that's what we need, that expertise, that energy, that creativity. I mean, you and Jess have been amazing in teaching us more about esports and opening our eyes to so many different things. But that's what we want to build on. So, if anybody in the audience wants to connect with us and just have a brainstorm, like, what is it that organization like the IRC can do in this space? Like, is there something new that we can try that hasn't been done? Or one of the things we'd love to do is maybe we do an annual event or tournament for the IRC that we can build on year after year. Like these are the things that we'd love to do, but we definitely need help. It's just me and Vasudha right now. So we need that community.
Well, it's you and Vasudha and I guess, right?
Yes,
first of all, this is perfect timing because as you were saying that, we're having people in the chat start asking questions. Atina, thank you so much for using the official Q&A tab. If you're on Hublot and you are watching this on our virtual event, you guys can chat. I'm like reading chat, we're reading chat. We will get this question answered towards the end. But let's focus on a question, I think, of community, right? When we talk about an esports community, that's often defined by like two kind of broad strokes. There's the fans, the consumers, the I watch. And then there's just the players, right? It's like the pros and then, all the coaches and that. That's kind of I think the most binary you can kind of slice it. But I see a future and I see the potential where the IRC is headed and other orgs like it, is there's the creation of this third group. Because that third group is actually still here. It's not just created. This third group has always existed. Esports and kind of the commerce around it has always just focused on these two groups. What is this third group? They're what I call affectionately the pot monsters. These are the people that sign up for tournaments knowing full well they will lose, but that's the point. They're signing up for the tournament because I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up. I'm going to give my money to the pool, make it bigger. I know I'm not going to be able to win. This is like a 3,000 person tournament, but I'm playing on my own in my house. And it's a nice little litmus test for my own skill to go to the tournament every week and see how I do. Maybe I get better, right? It's the same sort of a mentality of any goal, really. And I think that is a section. That is where these nonprofits, these student leaders, the student leaders, there's so many schools in attendance here. It's that third group that I think there's so much potential. There needs to be more casual esports play. So with that said, there's a phrase that I want to get your guys' opinion on, and maybe Vasudha, we can start with this. They say that esports helps turns screen time, just looking at a screen, into like active time, active social time. And I think that's actually a really good point. So with that said, what do you think are some of the benefits that the IRC, along with its core mission, right? What is that benefit if you could turn screen time into active social time within any community?
I mean, I think in general, it's the awareness raising piece for us. Like there's so many people who just, whether or not you know about the IRC, there's so many people who don't know like the extent of crises, and just sharing a story or a few stories makes such a difference for a community that's like already socializing together. I think we've seen that a lot of our clients just want to know that people care about them and their plight and their experiences. And so you can make waves just by talking about it in an active space and have that be like a social justice active space.
Yeah.
Like I would say, a very simple kind of starter conversation, whether that's like in the chat or, if you like cut to a break during the tournament, having that be a space where you can, raise an issue and talk about it. So I would say like really just the power of storytelling in active screen time. And we do it so passively, right? Like we're all on Instagram and we'll see something that resonates with us. I'm guilty of this. I won't even write my own comment. I'll just share it. Like you figure out what I meant and why I shared it. But I think there's still a lot of power behind that. Like it still doesn't able to turn that into an active conversation, whether that's like in comments, in a chat, whatever it is. I think you can really care, feel like they're making a difference.
And
yeah.
To add to that, I just, even if you're not doing an actual or making an action like, storytelling or raising awareness, even when you're in that space with your community and you are intentional about making sure that the community that you're in is inclusive and welcoming of people of different experiences, different backgrounds, I think that goes a really long way. One of the core pillars to the IRC is to build welcoming and inclusive communities for the people that we serve. And we all know that unfortunately, when it comes to refugees and asylum seekers and immigrants, there can be a lot of negativity surrounding that. And I'm hoping that we're heading in a much better direction. So it is up to us to make sure that people who are coming here and are just trying to find safety and rebuild their lives, that they feel welcome, that they feel included. And, if they join a tournament or something, that they feel safe, that, they belong there. So I think that's probably one of the easiest actions anyone can take in this space.
Yeah. And, speaking of the diversity or the importance of giving multiple ways in which someone can enter an esports community, that third group that I was mentioning of the casual players, there's actually a lot of overlap between industry members, right? If you work in esports, you're almost always a pot monster. You don't win tournaments, but you show up because you just want, to be there. But I think that's also something that a lot of IGEAS has planned around, is around what are the different skill sets that you can bring that, trust me, esports can make use of. What are the creative skill sets? I mean, what are the technical skill sets? I was actually just reading about a Syrian a refugee, a Parpi, who's now a pro player, for the past 4 years. First started playing pro in Fortnite. Now he plays pro in Valorant. That's the perfect example of, someone with such an incredible mechanical talent for FPS that, I mean, that wouldn't have been realized unless he had the opportunity to, despite his refugee status, still having the opportunity to be seen for this talent, to be, wow, this is someone who's very good. And I think, if I were to look at some of the ways we've discussed during prior calls about how we can help the practical issue of connectivity, I think it's always been this idea of safety, of inclusion, of a tournament being about bringing people together the game, and that's it. With that in mind, I suppose, what maybe if we just pretended that esports didn't exist, what are things that are already happening that you guys are doing, right? Like, what are the things that the IRC has done, or obviously continues to do? Because I feel like there's probably going to be overlap. There's a lot of cross education. The esports people need to learn the best practices from you, and then like vis-a-vis. So can you guys share maybe some of the things that are the most effective that you guys have seen now in terms of your core mission? And Senka, I'm throwing that to you, Senka. I'm throwing that to you. You have corporate in your name, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, the work that we do, especially related to corporate partnerships, is really the way we approach it is in a very sort of like, we say it like 360 partnership. So when we work with companies, we're not just looking to have a transactional relationship with them where, they write us a check and say, we'll talk to you in a year when you report on what you did with our funding. The idea is really to try to partner more holistically and leverage all of their assets to support the work that we're trying to do together. So what I mean by that is that, in addition to receiving funding from a company, we're looking to their leadership to help us with raising awareness, tapping into their networks in whatever industry they're in, to bring these issues forward and to motivate their peers to get engaged as well. We work with their marketing and comms teams to put messages out to their audience, to help their audience realize that they also can have a part in this, and this is how you get engaged.
Mm.
You know, we do campaigns, which I think are really critical in our ability to get our messages out there. I mean, the IRC, yes, we have been around forever, but our brand is not the same as, you know, if you think of, I don't know, Nike or something. Obviously, there's a huge difference. So when you have a partner like that who has such a greater platform and visibility, they're the ones that are in a better position to help us get our message out there, talk about the issues we're working on, and inspire people to take part in this. Same with employees. You know, we do a lot of employee engagement within companies, and that's another way that individuals on their own can do something that they're passionate about. So, you know, they can volunteer, they can donate, and their company will stand behind them. So all of these are basically proven methods, but you have to tap into every part of that partnership, basically.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you said that. Currently, the esports industry is learning that lesson about tapping into all of our own resources. Some people are calling it esports as a service, and I agree with that. It's, you know, let's reframe esports. It doesn't always have to be a product. It doesn't always have to be some consumer viewership thing. There's more things we can do. So we are running out of time, but I want to make sure that our questions in chat are being answered. So in this last maybe 10 or 8 minutes, let's get started on these questions. Tina Sang asks, given the difficulty with the modern audience willing to commit money in order to support the ecosystems that we participate in, you know, in what ways should esports help that, right? Like, how can esports help make money for these humanitarian efforts if we can't even convince people to sub, if we can't even, you know, convince people to pay a small amount? That's like the gist of that question. Great question, Tina. Would anyone like to take a stab at that one?
I wanted to add one thing. I mean, we've seen the power, at least on the the power of match funding, and so oftentimes, you know, getting like a brand who's aligned with the cause, you know, with like your esports league or game, whatever it is, and incentivizing that and leveraging it for consumer donations. Like, we've really seen individuals turn up and respond when they see that like another company is also willing to support the cause. And, you know, the other thing is, I guess the other thing that I wanted to add is that, you know, smaller donations do make a difference. Like, it doesn't have to be like 5-6 figures. Like, if you care about a cause and you donate regularly, you know, and we've seen, like, I've watched Twitch streams here and there, like, people will pay for the most random things sometimes. Like, maybe they're not subscribing, but, you know, it's like, I want to throw a nacho at this content creator, like an animated nacho, and it's like, here's $20, like $5, $1. You know, we've seen from a charity perspective, you know, on the back end, that people who give smaller dollar amounts can still make the difference. So I think leveraging the power of a corporate partner definitely helps. But I think, you know, don't feel that even those smaller dollar amounts can.
You know, if only I was getting paid in high school for every time kids threw a nachos in my hair. That would be great. No, but I completely agree with that, by the way. Yeah, it doesn't have to. I feel like a lot of the game industry, you know, we have a boom or bust mentality. Like, if it's not the biggest thing in the world, it's a failure. That's not true. I really like that point. You know, a small donation, that's fine. Senka, would you like to take a stab at that? Or how about you get this next question, actually?
Sure.
This next one's you. Oh, and this one's a biggie. Brian Smith. So, Brian asks, contemporary gaming sits at an interesting intersection between social connection and atomization. Gaming has thrived during the pandemic, but so has loneliness, depression, etc. What are ways that gamers can become more connected with the physical world to help others and themselves? I mean, I can't think of a better way to it's better connected with the physical world than connecting with the IRC, right? And having those gaming passions and skill sets go towards a cause that is very real, very physical, very present. It's in your backyard, right? But Asenko, how would you respond? What are more ways gamers can become connected with the physical world to help themselves and others?
Yeah, that's really interesting. because I see two things here. On one hand, the virtual world has given the people that we serve an opportunity to stay connected, even in the most like difficult situations. So when people are fleeing their countries and basically all they have on them is a phone, they're able to use that phone to maintain a sense of connection and community that helps them through that journey, basically. So that's the good side of this. But I totally get that there is this other side too, where, you know, not having that physical connection can lead to loneliness and depression and so forth. So my advice really is there is a way to bridge this. So if we're talking simply about trying to do something good and building a community in this virtual space and supporting an organization like the IRC, you can also take that into the real world. I mean, the IRC, we're on the ground. Our staff are working with people on the ground, and anybody can volunteer for us. Anybody can join this effort and, straddle both worlds, virtual and in person, and utilize their skills and their passion to do something good, to become a part of this different and new community, whether it's the IRC or some other charity. So I think there are ways to sort of like make that connection. But that's a really good question. Vasudha, jump in, please.
I was just going to give a couple of like examples of that I think maybe might make you feel like more excited and kind of hands-on that can have an impact for a family. Like our colleagues literally pick up, clients arriving to the airports. Like have a car and a driver's license, that is potentially something you can do. If you're really good at building furniture, like our teams will help set up that first apartment that families arrive to. Like you're great at IKEA, putting things together and making it look beautiful. Like you just really enjoy shopping on behalf of others. Like that's like a really tangible thing that you're helping out with, that also frees up time for, our IRC staff to do more. Like you're really good at like, graphic design. Like you make flyers for your esports league or your, like part of your like university club. Like you can help make, resume, templates and layouts, or if you're able to provide that guidance, for other people, we have those kind of like hands-on mock interviews, helping even just take like some of the work that our teams do, like taking our clients to grocery stores and helping them understand like what is food in America, like what is healthy food, what are things that you can buy that you can, like a lot of things I think that we take for granted, that just from our own personal lived experience, like you already know how to do every one of those things. So yeah, as Sanka said, it could be, things in the digital world, building community or raising awareness or raising faith. But, if you want to host a dinner party, like in person, even if you're not interacting with clients, that's still a space where you can talk on any sort of event for like I talk about clubs a lot because I did a lot of clubs.
I'd say,
I think those are like really transferable skills.
I'd say that your audio got an 88%. So that's a passing grade. That's good. Pass there. No. Don't worry. You're good, please. So, guys, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for that question. No, please, we did hear you. It just went out a few things. Guys, this has been a really, really amazing panel. I've learned so much. I feel like I've had a chance to, really dive into this topic, especially in the way that we wanted to. We're going to continue working together. Inven Global and the IRC has big plans, and I hope you guys can join us, right? Like if you're a gamer, if you love what we do, well, guess what? You now love what the IRC does. So you guys could check out their booth on Hublot if you guys are on our virtual platform. And also, I've been told to remind you all, there is a chair giveaway by our sponsor, Akilabee. So if you want to raffle for that, you just need to make a post on Hublot or on our front page or anything like that. Now, with all that said, though, we are closing. This has been our first panel for people and business. Senka, Vasuda, I want to just thank you again for your time. It has been really, really great. Do you have, where can they find you on social media, or where can people connect with you?
Twitter, Instagram. Now we're on Discord, so people
Great.
can find us anywhere. But yeah, also through your platform, we're happy to connect with anybody. So please feel free to reach out. We'd love to chat more.
There
And
are
thank you so
office
much.
hours. Yes, there's actually office hours. They've very, very generously donated their mentorship time. So if you would like to speak one-on-one, please go on our mentees tab. Vasuda, last words for you, and then we're ending it.
I mean, I got called out for not having a public Twitter,
True.
so I will make my Twitter public so you can
Yes.
join me if you're interested. But please follow the IRC across our channels, Rescue.org. Sign up for our newsletter if you're interested in learning more about our work. And I mentioned the Tiltify campaign, definitely a really concrete way to raise funding and awareness for this. For the IRC, it could be the crisis in Afghanistan, or for a crisis of your. So,
thank you, guys. Thank you so much. This is day one of the Inven Global Esports and Academic Summit. My name is Yggdrasil. I'll catch you for the next time I'm on a panel. So talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.